You know, it should be no secret to you guys that I love Mewtwo. He's one of my favorite Pokemon. I have several figures of him, and I've liked him ever since I saw him in the first movie when I saw it in theaters. Now, whenever I see something cool of Mewtwo, it's very tempting to purchase, and I did just that recently. From a series of figures called Polygo, today we're looking at the figure of Mewtwo. Now, I wasn't quite familiar with this brand, I've never heard of it, but now that I've looked at them, they're actually pretty cool. There's a couple different ones of this type, and what they've done is seemingly taken Pokemon models and made them very low poly, almost to the point where they look like PlayStation 1 graphics. You can't tell through the box, but he's very blocky and very stylistically interesting, for sure. Of course, on the front of the box here, we have this awesome window display, which shows the figure inside, very plain white text of Mewtwo in the middle, and even some branding at the top saying Pokemon. On the top, it is black with some very interesting kind of diamond shapes in the background, all just to kind of emphasize that polygonal shape that they're using. The side is similar in the way that it's a very pale purple, and there's all of the different polygonal shapes in the background, as well as the branding for Pokemon, the plain white text of Mewtwo, and even some text that reads, "A new innovative form of character designing based on the concept of placing simple layers together to form characters. We call this Polygo." The back's really cool too, the same kind of paneling as the side with the purple and the polygonal shapes, the branding, the Polygo logo, and additionally this window cutout of a Pokeball, which looks really cool. And finally, the other side is much of the same as the other. Will this be a cool figure, or was it on sale for a reason? Let's open this thing up and check it out. And as soon as we open it, we see a little bit of instruction here. It shows a kind of wedge that gets put on the back of Mewtwo's foot, since it is angled, and he does not come with any stand as far as I can see. Now that we have him open, there's actually some interesting stuff going on with this figure. As you can see, he is very interestingly designed with the many different polygons all over him to make him look kind of blocky. I really like this. I think this is a very interesting look. It certainly would grab someone's attention on a shelf, and for that was the main reason I got him. That, of course, and it's Mewtwo. Funny enough, though, this figure actually has very limited articulation, but there is some, which I did not expect, so I'm grateful for that. You can move his arms up and down, really just on that single pivot there. Both of his arms do have that very little bit of articulation, so I guess you could kind of play with that a little bit, which is nice. The only thing that I really don't like are the fractures that are in the figure. I didn't think that this thing was going to have posability, and so I thought it was just going to be one solid piece, maybe just one big mold, but he's actually made up of what looks to be a bunch of different click-together pieces. And because of that, there are fractures in his body, which really does break up the immersion. It's worst right here in his torso, but to be honest, it's also in his tail, and even in other places like the back of his neck, on his ears. Like, there's a lot of this going on, and to be honest, I don't know, it doesn't look good. Even the design of his eye has a bit of the polygonal sort of shape to it, so that's cool that they kept the theming all the way through. On his foot is the Polygo logo, as well as a single peg where you can plug in his stand. And like I said, it's just a very simple stand. You just plug that in because he doesn't really come with anything else. You just sort of plug this thing in. And yeah, that's pretty much everything he comes with. Now, you could probably get him to stand with or without that, so if that's breaking your immersion, then take it off by all means. But with the right lighting and the right framing, this does look really good. Obviously, it's under some pretty harsh lighting right now to try to make you see all of the details, but on a shelf, I feel like normally it might look okay. So I'm really not too upset about the fractures. Like I said, this thing's just going on a shelf, and to be honest, the thing was only $30. For what I spend on other figures, that is a damn good bargain. But what's not cheap here is the figure itself. I'd say it actually has a pretty solid build construction. It's pretty darn dense, to be completely honest, which I was not expecting at all. The thing is solid rather than hollow, and I guess that's because its many parts click together. They didn't want the thing to just kind of fall over or fall apart. So there's that to be glad about. But let's get down to it. As far as Mewtwo goes, this really nails his look. This is a great static position for him, and the fact that you're able to move his arms, even in the limited amount that you can, does allow you to make some variation in the way that you pose him. Now with that, he looks great on a shelf. He'd probably also look great on a desk, or just kind of somewhere mundane. Now if you put him next to other Pokemon figures, he's going to stand out just a bit. He is pretty decently sized. The figure's about 6.5 inches tall, so just short of 7 inches is pretty darn good for something like this. There's barely any painting, so there's really not terribly much they could screw up as far as the paint job goes. As far as I can tell, the eyes are the only thing detailed in. But I will say some of the sculpting is a little bad, only because of A, the fractures, and B, there was a spot here or there where there seems to be extra bits of plastic, and even what appears to be a nut mark under his arm, almost like where the part was clipped from its rack. And while that's not the end of the world, it is still annoying, but still, like I said, you're not going to be sitting here playing with this thing as it's not a figure, and putting it next to other figures might make it stand out a bit. But ultimately, the thing was only $30, so it really depends on what you want to spend on something like this. I think that price is perfectly fair. Would I like to see it for $20? Sure, but then it would probably have a little less polish. So all in all, I am going to give the Polygo Mewtwo figure a solid 7 out of 10. It's decent, and it doesn't upset me in any way, and it's Mewtwo, so it's all really cool in those ways, but ultimately, I feel like it's just missing a little something. If they could have filled in those gaps, that would have made it a 8 for me, probably, but the fact that there are some errors with the way this thing was sculpted is the main thing that's taking off points. Giving him some posability, but not allowing him to have any other is kind of a weird feature, and not being able to move his tail can be a pain in the butt, but to be able to do that well, you would have to add way too many joints, which would create more fractures, so I understand. But what do you think? Is this figure cool, or should I throw it in the trash? I won't do that, but you can comment below and let me know. And like the video if you liked the video. I'm going to link something else on screen too, so make sure to check it out. Even if you've seen it, it does help the channel to click it. Until next time, thank you so much for watching, have an amazing weekend, and keep on collecting.